Welcome, Gunrunner.
Hey everybody, Kieran aka The Laird here, back with another video. And this time I'm going to be doing a movie review. Haven't done a review of anything like this for quite a while. There was a stage a little while back where there was just loads and loads and loads of game-related films coming out at once, and I did World War One, the original Bedrooms to Billions, there was video games, the movie, all stuff like that. Then it seems to quieten down, and now we seem to be going through another phase of a load of video game related films coming out. There's quite a few. There's Bedrooms to Billions Amiga Years, which I'm going to be reviewing today. There's the box art documentary. There is the new Man versus Snake. That's another one I'm probably going to look at as well, and all sorts of other stuff. So we should actually have again quite a few of these movie reviews going up again on the channel. But yeah, as I say, today we're going to be looking at Bedrooms to Billions Amiga Years, which I've got there playing on the PC behind me. And obviously this is a follow-up to the original Bedrooms to Billions. And I will start off by saying I was very critical of this movie before it even came out. As soon as I heard the announcements, I was very, very critical of it indeed, because my biggest problem with it, trying to think of the right word to use there, was that they were calling it the Amiga Years, and I felt that that was an enormous disservice to the Atari ST mainly. But also you're judging an era by one machine, which was just a small part of that era. The ST and the Amiga were synonymous with each other in the UK, and there was also the PC, there was also the Acorn Archimedes. They were all in that same market. Okay, the Arc was mainly a school a computer for schools. And the PC was still finding its way as a games machine then. Most people were still using it as a business machine with gaming on the side. But it was still there. It was still changing the market. We still had stuff like Leisure Suit Larry and those kind of games, point and click stuff started to come in. They were mainly on the PC. So obviously they were still very influential to the way that video games were changing. And I thought by calling it the Amiga Years, yeah, it just seemed to like you're focusing on one part of a generation, whereas you could be very widespread. I mean, the first Bedrooms to Billions movie was just called Bedrooms to Billions. It was all about the 8-bits. You had the Commodore 64, the Amstrad, the Spectrum, the Atari, going back to ZX81. You had everything. It wasn't just the ZX Spectrum years or the Commodore 64 years. So I don't know why they chose to go with the Amiga years for this. And it did seem a very strange thing to do, not just because you could have been you're being misleading with the title, I felt, but also because they had an opportunity to reach a much larger market than they actually did reach. And I've lost track of kind of what I was going to go into next there, but it's because my dog is trying to get in the room and being rather annoying. I approached the movie reluctantly is not the word, but with trepidation. That's the word I want. So I did approach the movie with trepidation, and it was interesting how some of my opinions changed, but some of mine didn't as the movie went on. I mean, I'll go into this, I suppose, in a bit more detail, and I want to sort of kind of get the good stuff out of the way first, I think, and because I think a lot of people, when they watched my original Bedrooms to Billions video, they seem to think I was being really negative. I got a lot of responses saying about I thought it was really good, can't understand why you hated it, things like that. I didn't hate it. I did say it was good. I think it was just because I kicked off on a lot of the negative stuff and perhaps didn't say enough about what I liked about it. But I mean, there was good stuff in it. The biggest problem with the original Bedrooms to Billions was it just didn't teach me anything new. That was my only big problem with it. Apart from that, it was a good movie, well made. So the start of this movie, it's a very, very long movie. I'll just warn you. It's about 2.5 hours long, so be prepared to sit down and be in for the long haul. But about the first hour of the movie is absolutely fascinating. I mean, it's outstanding, brilliant. I was absolutely gripped, much more than I was with the original movie, because basically it starts off with all the Amiga designers. They talk about the Atari 2600 first of all, and the design of that. How the design of that then morphed into how it was evolved into the Atari 8-bit computers, and then how the design of the Atari 8-bit computers turned into the design of the Amiga. It also goes through in terms of how the whole Atari Commodore thing happened, so how they switched from Atari to Commodore, and the Tramels taking over Atari, and what impact that had on it, and all of that story, which I think it was brilliant. I found out some stuff I didn't know before. It was really good to hear some stuff from the horse's mouth. I mean, the Atari Amiga deal is something that's often been talked about. It's only been in more recent years that a lot of the facts have been found out about it, thanks to Marty Goldberg and Kurt Vendel with the Atari book, and they got a lot of this stuff out there. And this goes into a bit more detail because they actually talk about how they didn't want to work for the Travels, and why, and what Commodore could offer them instead. And there's a bit more to it than I knew before. I mean, a lot of it was to do with money more than anything, and how broke they were, and that's a lot of the reason why the Commodore deal came about. They still had the option to go back to Atari, but Commodore were very cash rich at that time and were in a good position to help them. And sorry, I shouldn't probably give away too many spoilers, but a lot of this is kind of known, but I shouldn't really give the spoilers away. But what they say anyway is really, really interesting in terms of those aspects of the Amiga and its development. I mean, the all the stuff about how it was designed, the technical stuff as well, I found brilliant. I mean, I think if maybe you don't know much about the technical side of systems, or you're not interested in the technical side of systems, you may find some of that stuff a bit boring. Probably you will go straight over your head. You're really just a games guy, but I found it fascinating. I think a lot of other more geeky people will. Then you go into the second half of the movie, and this is where I felt that it fell down. What they basically do is they then start talking about the Amiga and really how it came out. So they start talking about the games, they start talking about art packages, the operating system, how that changed things with multitasking. They talk about the demo scene, which I loved. I love the demo scene bit. I'll touch on that again in a little while. But go back into we're talking about the games. Obviously, the games was the biggest part of the Amiga. The Amiga was originally intended to be a games console, as many people know, that kind of then morphed into a computer because of the changing market. And gaming was a big part of it. But I speak to lots of people about what a great gaming machine it was, which it was. There's no denying that. How it was perfectly suited to doing games with its hardware, with the different graphics modes it had, and the Paulus chip and stuff like that. Brilliant, yeah. We all know that it's perfectly suited as a games machine. Very true. So all of that stuff was great. But then one thing still sticks in my mind and still annoys me, and let's mention it and get it out of the way, is Peter Molyneux. The guy has somewhat of a really bad reputation these days in the industry anyway, as just basically being a complete idiot, really. He talks complete crap half the time. He's had failure after failure in recent years. Everything seems to have gone wrong for him. He's turned from this guy who was really highly regarded genius into a bit of a laughing stock. And this movie does him no favours, and I have no idea why the producers of this movie even put him in it. He should have been cut right out. Pretty much the first thing he does when he appears on the screen is call the Atari ST a pile of shit. And just because that's an amazingly unprofessional thing to do, is clearly it's not true. They do actually. There are some other developers who actually say that they liked the ST, they just didn't like it as much as the Amiga, and they explain why. Brilliant. They explained that the ST was they're amazed that they managed to build a computer that quick to get it out before the Amiga. It used all the off-the-shelf parts. It wasn't designed as a games machine. Completely true. And they still say that the ST was good, but the Amiga was better. Yeah, no problem with that. That's completely true. But they recognise the ST's abilities, and some of them talk about what the ST was better at. So, for example, the MIDI stuff, the faster clock speed means it was better at 3D, things like that. So the other recognize, but Peter Molyneux coming on the screen and just saying the ST was shit just annoyed me so much and really spoiled it, because one of the things that they promised, I mean, actually, I remember them telling me, the guys who produced it, actually in a comment when I expressed reservations, and they said to me, we'll be covering the ST2 in a positive light, there won't be any slagging off going on of the ST. Well, you lied to me then, didn't you? Because in the movie you've got Peter Molyneux slagging the machine off no end. And that annoyed me, especially seeing as Bullfrog developed quite a few ST games, quite a few very highly rated ST games that are favourites amongst users of the machine, and you're basically telling them that they're idiots, that that you never even wanted to make games for their machine. I think it's awful. Anyway, calm down, because that just stuff just really annoyed me. But another thing is that they kind of just it got a bit silly with the praise. They just were like, "Oh, the Amiga's so amazing." Some of the people, and it was like, "Yeah, we know this. You don't need to just keep telling us that the Amiga was amazing." It was almost like they were trying to vindicate making the film and calling it the Amiga Years by just having loads of people repeatedly saying the Amiga's amazing. And it's like, get on with it. This isn't interesting. You're not adding anything to the movie at all. You're just telling me how amazing the Amiga was. You had several people basically repeating the same things about what was good about it. It's nice to have different opinions, but this bit could have been so much shorter. It just really went on, and I almost felt like fast forwarding at one bit, and it was just such a contrast after the first bit, where I was gripped to this bit where I couldn't wait for it to move along. Interestingly, go into the operating system and stuff like that, and they mentioned the ST operating system, which in many ways was actually better, but in this movie they make it out not to be, which I thought was quite strange. But there we go. And I did think it was a bit strange. They actually, as well, at one point, they show a few games as examples of the Amiga being amazing. And a few of the games that they showed were actually games that were probably more well known for being ST games. They were developed for the ST, first ported to the Amiga, which I thought was quite strange. And one of those, which sticks in my mind as well, I'm going to mention it as well, because I think it's a good point, is Starglider. There's a whole bit where they go on about how amazing that sample was on Starglider, the singing, the Starglider singing. Starglider was an ST game first, ported to the Amiga. That same sample was on the ST version before it was on the Amiga version. It doesn't sound any different because it's just a sample. And also, Starglider was actually a little bit better on the ST because it was faster. So I found it quite strange that they were going on about Starglider as an example of the power of the Amiga and how that sort of showed how amazing the Amiga was, when it was a better as an ST game. It was originally an ST game and better as an ST game. So I did find that a bit strange, let's just say. But anyway, it's not a big thing. And they did go on about, they did make some digs at the ST sound. Fair enough, everyone all seems to do that, but I think a lot of people agree that these days a lot of Amiga's music sounds absolutely terrible because it's just using samples, where a lot of ST music sounds excellent because it's proper chip music. And I think a lot of Amiga music hasn't aged well, and that wasn't recognised in the movie. They kind of bigged it up so much that you would think that the Amiga was the be all and end all of music, and it's not really. And the chip music scene is a big thing now, and the Amiga didn't really do chip music, so there we go. So yeah, moving on. The demo scene stuff, brilliant. Yeah, really glad that was in the movie, but I do feel they missed a bit of an opportunity again with the demo scene stuff. They talk about the different demo groups, how they had this kind of friendly rivalry, demo shows, all that. But again, no mention of the ST whatsoever. And I found that really bizarre because the ST versus Amiga demo scene wars was a huge thing. The guys would go and make a demo on the Amiga that they say they couldn't do on the ST because it used all the special effects of the Amiga, like ham and copper and all these things. And then some bunch of ST guys would go and make that same demo on the ST and prove that it could be done on the ST. And they had this great rivalry going on between the Amiga and the ST guys, and they would go to the same demo parties. But they made out in the film that the demo parties was like it was just an Amiga thing. That there was a Commodore 64 demo scene, then there was an Amiga demo scene, and that was it. And there wasn't anything else. And I just thought you've missed a big thing here of the rivalry between the Amiga and ST demo groups. And I think I've got a lot of friends who were part of those groups. I mean, I've interviewed all the guys from Thalion and did an article on them for Retro Gamer. And a lot of the Thalion guys were obviously originally ST sceners, and then they brought in some Amiga sceners as well. And when you talk to them, they talk massively about how that was a really big thing, them trying to outdo each other between the Amiga and ST. And I think they would agree that they've not really done that justice at all in this video. In fact, they've not even mentioned it. They've just gone on about how amazing the Amiga demo scene was and missed out everything else that was going on at the time. I mean, I just found that bizarre. And then the kind of movie kind of just tails off completely towards the end. It's like they didn't really know where to go. They kind of drag the demo scene bit out really long. I mean, it is much longer than it needed to be. They kind of start repeating themselves, and then they kind of go back and start talking about how great the Amiga was again, and then that's kind of it. I mean, where was the stuff at the end? Why did they not talk about the CD32, the Amiga 12,000? They touch on it really briefly. They talk about how they got Amiga engineer, they had new Commodore engineers to do the A500 because the original Amiga team had gone on to do other things. I'm going to touch on that again in a minute. That's reminded me. But they don't talk about how the 12,000 was developed, which is obviously the last Amiga computer really, or the CD32 is not mentioned at all. They don't talk about how Commodore went bust and the Amiga brand was sold on. Surely if you're making a film about the Amiga, that stuff should be in there. Why are you making it about an era? If you're making it about an era, why is it called the Amiga Years? And why is it not got more of the other stuff in it? It's kind of, they kind of got caught between two places, not knowing which one to go to. And the movie didn't really have any logical ending to it, which was a shame because there was so much there that they could have talked about. And going back to my other point there about what the Amiga designers did, they were so heavily featured at the beginning of the movie and all the way through it. In fact, they continued to commentate on different things. Why did they not talk at all about what they did next? I mean, through the Amiga years, they also developed and released the Atari Lynx. So why was there not even just a small part saying they took what they knew from the Amiga, developed the Lynx. The Lynx had some stuff that was very similar to the Amiga, like the colour palette, the sound chip was similar in many ways. It's the same design crew. It had the Blitter chip like the Amiga did. There was lots of similarities between the Amiga design and the Lynx design, but the Lynx added even more stuff like putting in things like hardware scaling and rotation, so even more advanced hardware. Why was the Lynx not even mentioned in the movie? I think a lot of people would be interested to know what those designers did after the Amiga. It's almost like in this movie, they developed the Amiga and then they kind of never did anything else again. Why not mention the Lynx? Why not mention the 3DO, which was the next machine they did? And that was towards the end of the Amiga years. I hate using that saying, but that's what the film's called. So why not touch on that at all as well? It's like they did so much good stuff for the first hour of the movie and then kind of lost their way and didn't really know what else to do with the rest of the movie. I mean, that said, I've gone a lot of negatives again because I think there are a lot. But that first hour of the movie was so good that it does save it. I will say that. I mean, I would recommend it that anyone interested in computers and gaming pretty much, doesn't matter if you're Amiga fan or not, the ST fans, especially Atari 8-bit fans, are going to love that first hour of the movie, because all that technical stuff, all the stories, anecdotes from the Amiga guys are brilliant. And the Amiga guys were fantastic. I mean, so much personality, with RJ McCall and Dave Needle and all of those guys were just, they're so entertaining, and they've got so many great stories in that video that anyone would enjoy it. And I do recommend people go out and watch it because of that first hour. I just feel it tailed off so much after the first hour that it's almost like not. It's really worth watching the next part of the film, maybe, apart from the demo scene stuff, I suppose. But yeah, it's you're probably going to still watch it all the way through. But it was far too long. Definitely was far too long. It never should have been as long as it is. They really did draw it out, and I don't want to be a victim of that and draw out this video any longer. So I will say, I think I'm going to give Bedrooms to Billions, the Amiga Years, and I'm going to give it a rating out of 10. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10, because the first hour is brilliant, but then it tails off, and it was a serious missed opportunity. And I think that is one phrase that I said when I heard about this, and I'm going to stick by it in my final review, is that it was basically just a missed opportunity. I think that's kind of the overall way to sum this movie up. I've heard that they've also just announced now, just before I start filming this, that they're doing the PlayStation years next, or something like that, or PlayStation generation. Again, it seems strange that they're going to go to focus on the PlayStation solely. I would imagine that it's going to be quite negative about the Saturn and N64 again, whereas I feel they maybe could have done things differently. I suppose the PlayStation was so big, though, in this respect. It's different because the PlayStation did rule that generation like nothing ever had before. It dominated it across the world. No system had ever done that, and dominated in every country and become, undisputed number one, so to speak, across the world. So the PlayStation was the first console to do that. So I can understand their reasoning a little bit more with that. Unlike the Amiga, where the Amiga didn't dominate, it barely sold more than the ST, and there were still other systems in the picture. But yeah, 6 out of 10, big missed opportunity. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I'm just about to start filming my 500th video for YouTube. So I wanted to do something a little bit special, a little bit different for that. So please look out for my 500th video, and thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know if you've seen the movie. Please let me know what you think in the comments, and thank you all for watching. See you all again soon. Goodbye.